All right, we are live. Welcome to the 41st episode of the Balena IoT Happy Hour. Today with some special guests from Balena, here, and not from Balena, here. So if you want to know about technology that saved the world or help us to learn how the planet works and do some, conserve the wildlife as we know it today or we used to know it, so you will have fun today to learn that technology that can save the world. So before that, hey, Alex, how are you, David?
Good, thanks.
Good. Alex, you've been on before, so the audience knows you, but you want to just give a very quick intro?
Sure. So I'm an engineer at Balena. Most of my time these days is spent working on the balenaFin. It's our hardware project, but doing all sorts of bits and pieces regarding hardware process. You'll probably see some more of me recently because I'm going to be working on some videos with the new upcoming V2 fin, which should be quite exciting.
Well, shameless plug. I think you and I are going to be spending some time talking about that V2 of the balenaFin this weekend at FOSDEM. I want to say 16:30 CET time, right? Which is UTC +1 is what we're scheduled for.
Maybe you can share the link on the chat. So
yeah, I'll grab the link.
Join.
I'll grab it and put it in. And new this year, you don't have to travel to Belgium, and it's free. So I'll grab the link in just a moment and drop it in. But yeah, come hang out, and we're going to talk balenaFin V2 at FOSDEM this weekend.
It's said that you cannot taste the Belgian beers.
No Belgian beers. You had to buy your own and get them ready in advance this year.
All right.
Before we before we go down to that bottom row, hold on, Mark. What shirt you have on? What are you wearing today? Yeah, that's right. We've got our SD card and USB stick. Etcher killed them both, right?
Exactly. Etcher used to kill them.
Yeah.
So because we had some complaints. We celebrate at Balena that Etcher actually is not able to kill any SD card.
No, it's not.
No.
But in case it happened, we have solutions. So feel free to go to our forums and ask for guidance.
All right. Alan Krasse, who wants to go first and give us a little intro?
Well, let me go first because Al is more important. So let me have more time.
You are.
Okay. So I met Al through I think I saw a few of his tweets at the time I was working with Red Hat, which is a company that does open source. And I thought, well, I do open source. Why not do it for the environment? And then I started with volunteering, but then I moved into almost full time as it feels now. Cool. And because of that, I even quit Red Hat so I can spend more time on actual projects that matter. And then to add to what Mark said, we're trying to save the environment but also by reusing existing open source technology, which fits perfectly fine with my background, and which in relation also brings the cost down, which is another amazing thing. All the things we're doing cost 5 or 10 times less than any other commercial product.
So all the projects that you do are open source?
Mm-hmm. We're trying to, and I think so far we managed to do everything in the open, yes.
Awesome.
And then, because this is not enough, I'm also involved in the crypto world since the recent, 5-6 months. So it's two completely separate worlds, and I'm trying to bring them together.
I don't know. I'm telling you, I heard that the amount of electricity used for each transaction, I think you're kind of competing here. You're saving the world, but you're killing it too. I don't know. We may have to have a chat about this.
Trying. There's still drawbacks, but we're getting there. I mean, now with the proof of work, the upgrade for proof of work, that should be all dealt with. And that's it, the short version.
Feel free to share your wallet from Bitcoins here on the chat so people can make
No, that is a great intro, Chris.
Oh, it depends on which coin. Okay, all right, Carlo.
Yeah.
Okay, Carlo, let us know what coin.
Yeah, you tell us which one, Carlo. Let us know which one. All right, Al, go ahead.
Yeah, great intro, Krasse, because the reason we do these talks and we hang out in these kind of happy hours and chat about projects, we find people like Krasse
who are out there who just want to get into something that's, it's not always just like the cool factor, it's that conservation factor. But you need that kind of talented engineer group out there to really bring in the appetite for others to try and innovate. Because you know what it's like in dev. It's a very iterative process. It can take, a year, 2 years to really get in there, especially if you're talking hardware. We know hardware is hard, right? So chatting about what we do as projects is like paramount to how we got here. And when Krasi first approached me, he was tweeting like, hey, I want to get involved. I'm like, oh, I'll get back to that guy in like a week. We've got to get to these projects. Next week, hey, I'm still here. I want to get involved. And he kept doing that. And I was like, okay, we'll give him one project, see how he gets on, just give him a chance to get in there. And he did an amazing job. And that was 3 years ago. And now he works on a lot of our front-end projects, using, the latest and greatest like Edge Impulse and TinyML and all of that, right? So if there's anyone else out there watching, drop us a line and we'll see if we can get you involved.
They're out there and they will catch this. Let me grab your Twitter handles as well and get them linked and put on screen also.
Where does the name of Arribada comes from? Do you have a story of?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, no one actually asked. So it's actually a name. It's used in turtle sea conservation, and it means arrival. And it's used when thousands upon thousands of turtles synchronize to nest, and they do it to basically ensure that a few of those eggs hatch and get back to the ocean, because only 1 in 10 tiny little sea turtles survives. And that's it's a small fact. So we stole the word Arribada because we wanted arrival of new open source technologies at scale. That's what we do, basically unlock access and give it out to the masses and manufacture and bring down the cost. So we stole the word. And also there was nothing on the internet using that word from a unique URL perspective. So we're like, we'll take it. But yeah, it's been good. It's quite unique. It's funny to see how people pronounce it. You get Arribada, Arribada. But Arribada is the right way of saying it. Yeah.
Say it one more time. Arribada.
Arribada. Yeah.
In Catalan means arrival, so it's like I recognize it as a Catalan word.
Yeah, exactly. Arrival of open source conservation tech.
Cool. That's super cool.
That is something new I learned even today.
Well, you worked there. You didn't
glad
know.
You asked. People are like, what the hell is this word? Yeah, it's like, it's glad you asked.
I never thought about asking about
it's just a word.
Too committed. Straight in.
Yeah, straight in. Yeah.
All right. Man, I think that this IoT Happy Hour will long like a couple of hours extras maybe today.
Yeah, this might be a long one. I don't know. Better brace
Should we do like a quick what's on your desk?
We'll do it fast.
Okay. Al, Krasi, do you want to sing? Or maybe you don't know the song, but Alex, do you want to sing today?
I'm not singing today. You're not prepared for this one.
Okay.
Too much.
David, you want to sing and then rain in Phoenix, Arizona?
I'm not prepared either. We'll go virtual.
Okay.
Just get
why do you sing is out for good luck?
Pre-recorded. Get pre-recorded.
Yeah,
Chris.
Pre-recorded in. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do
it. What's on your desk?
In retrospect,
Chris, who is the master
probably
of
could
singing
have.
the jingle.
Yeah.
All right. Alex, what's on your desk?
Me. Okay, so I'm cheating. I'm taking a different approach. I'm going for what's on my wall today because I spent the last week setting up a rig for testing balenaFins. So we have, you may be aware, a couple of iterations of the balenaFin, including some prototypes that never made it out into the real world that I use for testing and for evaluating stuff. So let me try and turn my camera around to do this.
Wait a minute. What on earth?
Okay, so this is my my DIN rail mounted balenaFin testing rig.
This is Bitcoin mining, I'm sure.
So
Did
I
you
have
just stick a bunch of balenaFins on a wall?
Yeah,
Yep.
rack mounted. Yeah.
So I have all 3 release generations we have, and then 1 prototype that never made it out into the world, unfortunately. But I use all of these for testing various things, checking hardware works, all sorts of debug goes on that wall. And now it's easier for me to manage it because I can see when they're all failing or succeeding from my desk.
But these are fins 1 or 1.0?
So we have a 1.00, 1.10, 1.11, and then a 1.1x that never made it out.
Okay.
So what, you run some benchmarking software or something like to test it?
So it's mostly to do with there's a couple of variations between them. So the 1.00 had an extra chip on it for debugging the microcontroller. So there are some of these still out in the world, but not so many these days. So we have a couple of different firmwares that run on the microcontroller that's on that board, and I use this rig to basically test against different versions of that flashing process.
Nice.
Really cool. Anything else that it's on your room?
It's not even what's on your desk. It's what's on your wall.
Yeah, any server racks on the wall?
Yeah, I have some other stuff that I'm planning to mount. I have, I know David knows that I'm a big fan of the Ultra 96 platform with it's a FPGA system on chip board that I do a lot of my research with. And I'm trying to work out how to set up a rig with those, but I don't have quite as many as those boards. They're a bit more scarce.
Yeah, they're pricey too.
Pricey, yeah.
David, what's on your desk?
Well, in the name of time, I was thinking about skipping, but let me just really quickly switch over and
This
see.
is always the same. So
I know, it's always the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always the same. Nah, this one I think may have been shown earlier in an episode. I can't remember. This is actually a really old board. So if we were broadcasting this in like 2015, this would be super cool. But now in 2021, it's not so cool anymore. It's just sitting here because, interestingly, we were chatting beforehand about the ARM world. This is a 96 board's high key. And it is one of the very few boards that supports UEFI standardized booting. So it was actually about a 5-minute job to port Balena OS to this board, whereas it takes me multiple months due to my limited Yocto skills to port other boards. So it's an interesting artifact from, a good 5-6 years ago. But it's not terribly useful these days other than standards testing.
Nice. So it's a new supported device.
No, it's not. It's not a supported device. I don't even know if you can buy one these days. So no, not a supported device, but just happened to be on the desk from yesterday doing some tests.
Okay. Before jumping into our guest, if it's okay, I will do a challenge for David. I'm just changing my. Yeah, probably you will not know, but because you always know what PCB or what board is. I'm moving to another apartment, so I was making some boxes of my electronic stuff and garbage that I have on several boxes, and I found something like this.
Let me take a look. No, I don't recognize that one. Where's iShot JR? He would know it. He's the true professional. Yeah, let me see the back side of it. It's obviously okay. So it's an ST. I mean, the ST is obvious, right? Yeah. 32F. So 32F. So what's the MCU? I'm just trying to think what platform it could be for. Especially with the built-in LCD, would be almost like a mobile phone developer kit. But nah, I don't know it.
It's an embedded. Yeah. I think it's compatible with embed ARM OS.
Embed, yeah, it probably does run embed.
So
built-in LCD is. Oh, the Discovery kit. Yeah,
it's a Discovery kit, and here I have another one. Like it's a different one.
F7 Discovery. I've seen those floating around. Yeah. In fact, I've seen people attempting. No, it was the MP1 STM32 MP1 DK Discovery kit. There's a Balena port out there in the wild for it.
I was reading about that.
Yeah. All right, very cool.
To me, it looks like a mobile phone that was never finished.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how they develop those. Yeah. Those are the bring up devices
looks like
for
an iPhone, like an old iPhone.
Qualcomm makes boards like that for dev purposes for phones.
And the other one, Krasi, what's on your desk?
Yeah.
first we'll start with what's on our GitHub, because that will,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair.
can you see my screen, or can you share it?
Yes,
Here
of
it
course.
comes.
Okay, so that's under obviously the Arribada GitHub repository.
Let me grab
And
that
this is a
link.
project.
It's on the banners, David.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a project Al and I started, I think, about a year ago. And after a year, we already have
Covered up, Al.
we have sent one set in Kenya that should be tested in the next few months, and then another set in. Can you all remind me where it was?
Cyprus.
Cyprus, yes. And thanks to COVID, it's just when we were done with the actual implementation and the tests, it's in lockdown, so we can't see the positives that this can bring to saving like endangered species. But I mean, probably in the next couple of months, we should be able to
But
test
that's
them.
interesting. Actually, did you observe that this lockdown improved life of a lot of species, or it was worse for them? What do you think?
In the ocean, most definitely, because if you think
It was
about
good?
it's been good for weird things like sound. Because if you think about all that boat traffic as well from like recreational activities, especially on the coastlines, that has been very quiet from a wildlife perspective. I'd say it kind of balances itself out though, because from my perspective, the kind of loss in tourism, a lot of the income from that world goes to support conservation. So it's not like it's a perfect scenario. You think about the pressures on those kind of ecotourism spots that use tourism for good. So it's plus and negative, but I've heard in the ocean specifically, just for the kind of opportunity to put sound recorders out and listen to coral reefs and all kind of like soundscapes has been 1 in a million to do that, because you never have a chance where the world quietens down and there just aren't people there on speedboats and all kinds of just general noise. So interesting times for monitoring wildlife.
I was listening to a really interesting podcast. I think 99% Invisible had one about this. So it was basically talking exactly about that, saying that there was a researcher who was listening to whales specifically to do with their migration paths, or where they were moving around to. And they'd actually been able to properly conduct research and be able to listen to and record them because there'd been a decrease in shipping lane movement.
Exactly, yeah.
Probably share that link if anyone's interested in it.
So there you go. Our job is done, Al. We don't have to.
Yeah, there you go. Job is done. I saw that just the other day, Alex. I forget where. I saw it on Twitter. They had done some mapping of the whale avoiding, and if it's the same article or piece anyway. But yeah, how the whales were avoiding the shipping lanes.
It's going around on Twitter at the moment. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
you can see the blue whale literally like hiding in the traffic lanes, and it quickly crosses. It comes back. That is fascinating research. We'll probably get into it soon because our tracking tech is about to go, into the whale space from sea turtles. So potentially even, get involved in that soon.
Very cool.
Awesome. Sorry, Krusty, that I interrupt you. Sorry.
No problem.
I got super interested for that.
Going back to this is like a low-cost GPS tracker using LoRa, and obviously all of this is working on balena. And probably the biggest thing here is that I managed to get the ChirpStack server. Now it's still with the old name LoRa server on the picture, but now it's called ChirpStack, which is like another open source project that allows you to send and receive data using LoRa. And so yeah, that was the big thing. This, I don't think it exists. Anybody else has managed to put it on balena, and now, and the big issue to solve was to build all of the components of the ChirpStack server for the ARM processor, because it's running on 32 bits, so that took a while. And then another thing that is running on there, well, you can see there are many moving pieces.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Wow.
There is a lot.
Yeah.
So on the sender, you have like a Raspberry Pi Zero Hat, which sends LoRa signals. On the receiving, you have another Raspberry Pi LoRa Hat, which receives, and then there is another tool that I did myself, which converts all of these data into actual Prometheus metrics. That's another thing I can mention now. I used to be one of the Prometheus maintainers, which is another probably the most popular open source projects for monitoring. And the idea is that as soon as something happens on the GPS tracker, you can set different thresholds. If the threshold is met, you can receive an alert using PagerDuty or any other way you decide, because Prometheus is quite universal and integrated with many different systems. And the other big thing is we integrated Smart Connect, which is a very popular software for conservation technologies. I think it's used in many different conservation projects. And TrackCar is yet another open source project that is has a really nice user interface through a web browser where you can follow the actual GPS tracker on a map. Cool. And then I can actually show this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so first things first, I'm looking, there's not actually a bill of materials, but I see that you have each item labeled, so we could...
Sorry, do you want that screen back to...
Go right off of that.
Yeah, we probably haven't actually broken it out into a physical bill of materials. We've probably just labeled it at the moment.
Yeah, and that's okay, though. I can see what the parts look like. I mean, if we wanted to build one of these or duplicate it, I mean, Mark, you better... you gotta build this thing.
Can I got this on my fleet?
Mm-hmm.
And then the sender I have, this is like a normal Raspberry Pi Zero.
Give me a sec that I will zoom you.
Yeah, let's zoom in on, there you go.
So it still has got the tape on it because after I did the tests, I was doing a test on the range. I wanted to know how far we can go. So it's all taped to make it a little bit more robust. You know, tape solves everything, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Universal fix.
Yeah, so this is the actual sender. So this is just like a GPS tracker connected to the LoRa Raspberry Pi Zero, which just sends, obviously, through the LoRa hat. But then it's we have Arribada Al did a dedicated device, which is I'm also showing on the GitHub schematics. So you can see it in the small block just next to the Raspberry Pi Zero. So it's a company called Irnos who developed this. And so you can send the GPS signal from any device. At the moment, the integration is with the Raspberry Pi Zero and the Irnos GPS tag. And that's, I think, one of the big things I've been working on. And then the other one that is still in progress.
There's another one?
Yeah, there's lots of projects.
Oh, man. I mean, that seems like a full-time gig right there.
Yeah.
This one is an interesting one. This is a tool that we're developing to enable an easy reporting of events. Let's say there is an event happening on a boat and you want to have an easy way to reporting an event. So, for example, there was a dolphin in the net or some other endangered species, and you want to be able to report it so that then people can do some analytics on the data. So we came up with this idea that we can use voice recognition. So, for example, this is like a respeaker, just like a respeaker USB sound card. And we will use this to trigger a voice, to trigger recording using your voice. So you can say start recording and it will start recording. And then so this is using ML, like machine learning. We're training a model that will recognize specific trigger words. At the moment, we have decided for start recording and stop recording. And additionally, we will train it for different keywords like blue dolphin, like the dolphin size and all of these, so we can tag it later. And additionally, also this is using a jam hat. So if it doesn't recognize your voice, if it's too noisy, you can also use the buttons to start and stop the recording. And really this is not on Balena yet, because this jam hat is called a jam hat. It has got some issues with the button and it needs a kernel 5.10. but I did contact your team, and it seems like you will get it in quite pretty soon. So this will be on balena soon as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that'd be good.
Very cool. Let us know if we can help, because we can pass you through to the OS team and the devices team and get you what you need. Or it sounds like you may have already done that. Even better.
Yeah. Another thing that is using here is like the power over Ethernet hub. So you can see there is no power to it. It gets all the power from the network cable here.
Yep.
And then for the voice recording,
you have two hats, right? One is the power over Ethernet.
Yeah, double hats.
Yes.
Hats, yeah.
And it took a while to manage to fit
Give me a
them.
second. I will zoom.
Zoom. Yeah, there we go.
So I had to put an extender here and also an extender on the insides.
Yeah, I've seen those. In fact, I have one. Yeah, those.
Yeah, it's pretty useful.
Yeah, those
And
are
then
nice.
it records from a standard CCTV camera, which is an IP CCTV camera, and it allows the system to be really low cost because everything is off the shelf. You don't need anything specialized.
Super cool.
I noticed in chat there's 2 comments about what we're using for the machine learning.
Yeah.
And someone earlier pointed on, we are using Edge Impulse at the moment.
Yeah.
We're working with their team, like in an actual special case, to actually train the TinyML model. And we find that's pretty useful because the GUI environment is just really nice for kind of project managers who want to come in, collect voice, train it without having to actually learn the whole stack of, running a TensorFlow-like environment. They can come in and use it.
You don't need any technical background whatsoever. You just use few clicks, you upload
Do it
all the
there.
tips.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of simplifies the whole process of the machine learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
They've been on the show before as well. We know that team really well also.
And actually, last week, the IoT Happy Hour, number 40, you can go to you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Shameless plug alert.
But yeah, last week we got a developer from the community who made us a bird feeder with a camera and a microphone. And with Edge Impulse, it was classifying by image or by chirp.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
By the way, has anyone of you used this respeaker?
I have not used it. I've seen it around in a lot of places, but no.
Okay. Seems like an amazing piece of tech, and it has got it should have noise reduction. I still can't get it to work. So if somebody has used it and listened to this, maybe they can contact us and help us. There is some volunteering work. And then also it's supposed to recognize your voice when it's supposed to recognize between noise and voice and just get activated when there is voice. So this is why we decided to use for this, because at the moment we are battling with trying to solve a problem with the background noise, because basically you can imagine if you put this on a boat, it will be quite noisy from all of the environment. So this is probably the most challenging things to deal with on this project, the background noise and being able to recognize your voice.
Yeah. It's pretty nice for me. We're often constrained with an IoT device has to be battery based, has to be, 10 microamps idle to run. On a boat, we have a boat engine. You can actually plug it in over PoE and run a Pi 4 and be like, wow, we have power. What a difference.
And you have another problem with the noise.
Yeah, you have a big noisy engine which pollutes the world.
Then you have a diesel engine running.
Yeah. But you do have power.
Let's go nuclear.
We will get into the power because that's super interesting.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Let's jump into Alasdair, or you have something else, Krasi?
Yeah, Al, you want to show anything on your desk?
Another year.
Oh man, it's like
1 year.
there's so many little things. I'll take you through a kind of glance at some of the stuff we do. Some of it I'm going to pull out, which is all kind of Pi based, which is very accessible. And some of it's more kind of microcontroller based, but I'll just give you a sense of what we get up to. So one of the first times I used balena was actually in the Amazon rainforest, of all places. And we were running a project where we were putting pies up in the canopy. So we basically, we set it up in a way where we had a Pelly case design. we'd go up into the canopy, we'd set up like a long-range Wi-Fi link. It's like a long-range 2.4 gig link, and then we would wake this system up. It would take photos, and it would wake up at a dedicated time and transmit it to a base station. And we were running balena on those Pi Zeros. And the first time we went out and did that, we were on a satellite connection, so like a VSAT, like a big dish. We still couldn't like rely on fast net. So what we were doing is we'd fly out there with all of the images already pre-burnt, everything set up, and if we made a change, we'd only push the delta, so we'd make that tiny iteration.
Right.
That link would go up from the base camp. You'd be sitting there getting eaten alive with mosquitoes. You'd see balena come online and your little devices, and in that period of time, we'd push up any changes to literally the cam in a tree, like 500 meters away. And it was a fascinating project. It was my first use of that. And that kind of spurred on this, which is this is an off-the-shelf cam. So it's a Nanook case cam, so it's like an IP68 rated cam. And inside it, we took the same principles of that rainforest project and worked with our partner Zeronas again and made this, which is my light good enough there. Let me see if I can move that for you and get you a better look. There you go.
That's all right. Yeah, we can kind of see what's going on there.
So essentially, it's a normal Pi cam, like the older 5 megapixel one. This was like predating the high quality one they got now. This is a daughter board that sits on top of a Pi Zero. This is the RTC that basically wakes up the unit and does all the sleep mode for it. And we put this down on the peninsula in Antarctica, and it's a penguin cam. So it's a time-lapse penguin cam that monitors the penguin colonies. They're all over the peninsula now down in Antarctica. And the reason we rebuilt this instead of just buying an off-the-shelf cam is it's completely open source. It's in an off-the-shelf case, so it's way cheaper to manufacture. At the back of this is a bank of lithium ions, so 18650 cells, 6 of those. And that is essentially it. It's a bank of batteries, a Pi cam, a Pi, a daughter board, and an off-the-shelf case with solar in here. And this was fascinating because it was the first time we kind of took something from the Amazon rainforest, which was a much bigger Peli case running balena, and then converted it into something smaller for a time-lapse cam. But then we also thought, could we take this below the waves and put it on the back of a sea turtle or on the shell of a sea turtle? And I'll show you what that looks like now. I'm going to share a video with you. I think it's the first. I don't know if you guys have got any other projects where it's balena under the waves. Have you had anyone else share any under the wave balena stories?
No, you are the only one.
This is the first.
That.
Okay, well, here we go. Can you see that? Can you bring that video on?
Sure.
So
Wow.
this is a Pi Zero in a sea turtle enclosure, stuck on the back of a sea turtle shell, running balena off the coast,
coolest.
off the coast of Principe. And what we did is this is a wireless charging unit. So we epoxy it on when this is a nesting green sea turtle. So when it comes to the beach to nest, we essentially hide in the bushes, jump out when it starts the nesting cycle. Very ethically make sure we put on this camera, which stays on.
Ask that.
Stays on for 15 days, and it's been shown that they're quite happy if you do everything right in that sense of you don't disturb them, you use red LED lights, so they're very unaware of your presence. You secretly put this camera on, and this allows us to watch for behavior, so we can see how often they meet other turtles. We can see if there are any threats to them, so plastics in the ocean. In fact, the footage from this showed that I think a third of all of the footage captured over a 2-week period, they were encountering plastic. And this is a pristine island. This is like a beautiful, like perfect white sand beach. And we use this to essentially watch them. And when they come back 15 days later, because that's their clutch cycle, when they nest, we then take the tag off. It's wireless charging. We put it into a bank. So this is another Peli case back in the office. As soon as it detects that wireless charge, it boots up the Pi. We have a Wi-Fi link to it, and we pull off all the footage. And again, it shows up online, so you can be back in London. You can see your little sea turtle balena cams come online. You can tinker in, SSH in, muck around with them, check the status, and so on. And it's been a fascinating project to see. You can watch this for hours. In fact, I think someone messaged me saying they have it on a second screen playing on loop as just kind of like a Zen thing to get through the lockdown. This is hours of hours of turtle footage just on repeat, and you see fish come by, and you see other turtles come over and interact with them, and it's like it's amazing stuff.
It's incredible. It really.
But yeah,
is.
that was Balena Under the Waves, and then to finish off with just what we do in the tracking world, just in the microcontroller space. If you cut back to my cam,
sure,
I'll show you this, or we could watch the turtle cam all day. But
yeah, I could watch that all day. That is so soothing.
I'll send you links to that. This is our open source Argos kit. So again, I'll try and get it in better light for you. It's essentially a Nordic NRF based little microcontroller. It's the Bluetooth 5 version for long range Bluetooth. We have like a little U-Blox GPS on the back, Pico blade breakouts, so you can connect anything else you want to it. And this is a little daughter board, which is an Argos satellite transmitter. And this wasn't open source. When we started this project back in the day, all of the actual available solutions for this were basically closed. So you had to go and get it as a finished product, which would be potentially $2,000 for a very select satellite, sea turtle tag solution. So we worked with CLS, the company in France who run the constellation of satellites, open sourced and created a reference design, which we then put out on the internet for everyone to use. And now we offer this as a kit. And the first project we used this in at scale was inside a plastic bottle. So a 500 milliliter lemon and lime plastic water bottle. We put in an array of batteries underneath the unit, seated the system like this. So it's basically two PCBs together with a little interface cable, and then put those bottles in the Ganges River in India, let them float off into the ocean, into the Bay of Bengal, and then track them for National Geographic. One of the bottles did about 2,800 kilometers, which is the same distance as traveling from, I think, London to Gibraltar, just floating as a little bottle on the ocean. And it's all open source. It's the first time we've done an open source Argos sat tag project. And of course, now it's available for anyone else out there. So I think the future for this too is projects whereby you can finally get access to the hardware, do what you want with it, interface it to something else, stick a cellular modem on it, stick an accelerometer, do what the hell you like. But the freedom to kind of innovate, which is just like you guys do with like the balenaFin. It's a carrier board. Here's what you need. Here's all your I/O. Get out there and make stuff. And we just use it for conservation. So there are a few of the projects we get. There's lots more on my desk, but I don't want to burn up too much time.
I mean, we could talk hours just on your desk.
Yeah, well, keeps us busy.
And maybe one important thing here to note is that for us, being able to remotely manage and debug these devices is like crucial. Without Balena, I don't think there is any easy way to remotely come close to what we can do if we have the device in the dashboard.
Yeah, it's a good topic that I thought would be good for this afternoon too, because it's obviously why you guys started as well, in terms of you needed a way to control all of these devices in a really simple way where you can SSH in or push one change and every device gets hit, right? In conservation, that is paramount, because what you find is you get field conservationists who aren't that technically savvy in the space that, they're going to be able to use everyday tools, but they're not going to know what SSH is or anything in that regard if you ask them.
Right.
And you constantly, in the old days of doing this, you constantly got stuck into those kind of Skype calls at 1 a.m. where you're trying to say port 22, the IP address is this dot this, and they're like, how many dots you got in there? Okay, right, let's do it again on some dodgy connection to middle of nowhere. Since this kind of new world of managing IoT devices in a very controlled way has kind of started to burst into like a bubble, it's been so much more effective for us. And that's why you can see from Krasi's presentation too, we started actually building it in at the core, even if it is something like a balenaFin as the kind of central unit, which is allowing us as engineers to get in and just help and just keep systems running. And then you've got those kind of extended devices, which are GPS tags or LoRa tags, etc. As long as we can get in and just control that room and support that end user over whatever internet connection we've got, it was such a big difference. And this wasn't around several years ago. It was in its infancy, but so mature now.
Yep.
It's making a big dent, and I think you're going to see a lot more people getting into this world, especially in conservation. So it's been great to ride that wave, really.
I mean, that's a good thing if there are more people involved. And yeah, the availability of this kind of technology, especially at low cost, that's a game changer.
Yeah, well, at least it's open source, right? So that's really awesome. Actually, David, before the IoT Happy Hour start, we were chatting in the backstage, and they asked me a question about the temperature range of the balenaFin. And I said, yeah, so David will let you know more, but they are not looking for the highest temperature, but the lowest.
Oh, the lowest. Oh, I don't know anything about the lowest
exactly.
temperature. I only know about the highest temperature of the balenaFin. I am in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's in the middle of the desert, as you well know. This particular fin spent last summer living on my roof, which is concrete tile. And so inside of a case, I want to say it was a 67 case, in full sunlight, the Pi Compute module on the back of it got up to 107 Celsius was where it finally shut down. That was the highest I was able to record off of it. As for the lowest, no clue. Not familiar.
Maybe Alex.
So we have it spec'd out to be capable of running up to minus 25 degrees Celsius. So that's our current operating temperature. You might potentially be able to push it lower, given we could profile a version to make it run at a lower temperature than that. But I don't know, what are you aiming for? What's your target?
So
how cold are we talking?
Yeah, so on the peninsula in Antarctica, we go down in the summertime when it's about -5, which is kind of pretty normal, right? But it's the summertime. And the peninsula isn't too bad. It's even in the winter, it's probably at -15. But when you then go down into the main of Antarctica, then it's like you can get as bad as -70 degrees C. But we're thinking of, if we got to like the -25 to -30, you've got two issues. One, your batteries are going to have a hard time.
Yeah,
you're going to lose a lot of efficiency.
Right.
Yep.
But also, you do have to then get into the state of what's your hardware going to be like too. And the usual kind of de facto is -20. Most it's usually -20 is the kind of off the factory. It'll withstand the cold. But we wanted to push it a bit further. We did see on the balenaFin specs that you basically looked into that to make a more rugged design. We could get down to like -40. So it's always been on my kind of like tick list to say, I wonder if we took a fin to that extreme cold. Dare I say we could even do a cool kind of project around it together as like a kind of super team, right? The coldest fin, and see if we can get it to some really crazy places in Antarctica where we can, dare I say, potentially even watch the emperor penguins. So you don't get them on the peninsula, and you need some serious cams there. So that'd be pretty cool, right?
And we know you have experience with penguin cams already, so okay.
You've given me some firepower to bring back to the team to justify this temperature decrease. So
we've had internal memos for years. Like, we should really reach out to them and email them saying, what would it look like if we took a fin down there? Maybe they'd like give us a fin.
That's interesting. That? I mean, we could certainly. Okay, so cool, right? the wheels are turning. I mean, if you want to sacrifice a fin just in trial and error, it seems like an expensive proposition to put a fin on an airplane to Antarctica just to see what would happen. But I have actually wanted to land a fin there for the specific reason of being able to push a container over the air to Antarctica. Now, I looked already at the base camp. Why can't I think of the name?
Antarctic Base Camp. There's an actual NGO called that as well.
Yeah. So I've already looked into this a little bit to see what kind of connectivity they have and how to go through. Which it was NSF, I think, here in the States. National Science Foundation, I think, has some presence down there, permanent presence. and they can only ship in during the summer months. And so I was already trying to scheme how I could get a fin there to be able to push a container. So we might be onto something here. Maybe if you're sending an expedition down, we may have to talk.
Yeah, we call them ships of opportunity. So we go on the kind of ships that are taking either tourists or scientists down from whatever it is, British Antarctic Survey to Quark and some of those vessels. And we work with Penguin Watch, which is out of Oxford University. So they kind of take us along as engineers, and we get to shadow them. They do the deployments, we shadow them. So there are plans to kind of scale up these cams. I'd love to get a more kind of extreme cam setup for like a really long-term deployment, but it has to be super rugged. And it's not even that. The questions we get are like, what do you do when it freezes? Like when that cam is rock solid. And I've walked up to some colonies of penguins, and you get to the camera. I'm not even kidding you. The camera's here, and the ice block ends here. It's like you're like, holy, and the camera's here, right? You're chipping away at it like for 20 minutes. That camera hasn't seen very much for a while because it's just so you get like prevailing wind that just brings in the ice and it blocks up. So clever things that we're thinking of doing next are things like wake up if you can't actually see a photo, so detect that white level. Even a bit of ML work to say what's in this picture. Does it look like a kind of blurry, frozen realm? Just go back to sleep and wait. Or dare I say, even try and do something to protect yourself from the ice. Heaters just are so powerful, though. You think about the watts you have to put into a heater. Again, you sit in your house, like, oh, let's turn the heater on. You have no idea just how much energy you're pumping out. There's no way you can do that sensibly. So we've never pushed into that regard. I think it'll be more about just conserve power, wait until the ice melts, which it does, it melts and thaws.
Don't you have to wait like 6 months for it to melt, though?
It's kind of bizarre. It's like it's never like a block for a long time. It's usually like a week or so, and then it'll kind of clear up and it'll come back again. So, but that's on the peninsula, right? Down, really in the cold, you're gonna get real issues. But again, these are the challenges that we faced with. It's interesting to think how you get around them. There has been one suggestion, a wacky one, which we could have, and this is like the ultimate tech, but kind of like remote robotic assist. So some way of actually, clearing the ice.
Wipers.
So like a wiper, but something a bit more controlled, which is kind of like, you could go really far here. You could have like an ML style thing, which like looks for the ice and like scrapes. Obviously, it's like, this is dream stuff. But someone suggested, one of those robotic dogs from
Spot.
Spot. They suggested just bring one of them down.
Yeah, but wait a minute, wouldn't they freeze too?
Yeah, well, I don't know what the
What good is
specs
that
are
gonna
of
do?
those, but you could imagine this dog just coming out of the ice, chiseling away cameras.
No, I don't know.
It's
about
only
this.
like $60,000, something like that, to get one.
You could just keep replacing balenaFins for that cost. You could just send them out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna buy a $60,000 Spot Mini, just send a new fin down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, Alex.
that's
You
the
better
work for
start
the
thinking.
coprocessor. No, Alex.
Say again, Mark.
What's that, sorry?
Sorry, so that maybe that's to sleep the camera. That's a good work for the coprocessor of the fin, right?
Yeah. So this is super interesting because some of the new direction that we're taking the V2 fin in is a much more modular approach, and we're doing it this way to be able to spec design profiles for our customers. So one of the things that has been discussed in the past and now coming is also like thermal ratings. And so most of our concern at the moment has been like increasing the temperature to be able to support that. But I imagine that we could also have that conversation going the other way. And I think we probably should do, because that's something potentially we could support you with.
Yeah, definitely.
But the problem are the other components. I was discussing as well last week with rack, with people from rack to introduce a fin with a rack concentrator in the desert, but they can reach up to 45 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, 45. That's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So probably the batteries will die at minus 30, right? At minus 40. Probably.
Yeah. The other issue that we've got is that the new fin's going to support the new compute module, and that actually has a smaller temperature range supported than the previous generation of compute module. So something that we're going to look at as well is support for custom socks. So if there's a custom device that we know that can survive those temperature ranges, that may be something that we could consider supporting.
Yeah. It comes down to that.
Might not make it.
Yeah, Spot's out of the
Spot's not gonna make it.
Dan, we could have asked him for a free spot and brought it down. No, it's not gonna happen.
Carlo was, I don't know, I would have to check in, but is at ARM. So, they might have a little bit of sponsorship money floating around. Maybe Spot isn't such a bad idea.
But yeah, going back to that, like, how do you build this? It is like we're saying, you've got the battery issue, you've got other components, and then you've also got that question too of what does reliability look like? If you do have a failure 6 months in, how are you going to get there and fix it? And I think redundancy is really key. So, like you talked about that coprocessor, what has become really essential too are ways of, say, using microcontrollers to just as watchdogs to watch over systems and alert you to certain things. Because what often happens in the space of, I'd say, entry-level enthusiasts getting into their first kind of, let's just say, a Pi-based balena setup, they're still essentially based on that unit itself as your control. And if you can't safely detect that there's been an actual system halt and confidently reboots, or have an external device which just literally kills power and reboots, you get yourself in a lot of muddle. So it's becoming essential to have that kind of carrier environment where you've got a watchdog completely separately with some really reliable code, which only really just runs at a microcontroller level to watch what you're doing and sips power. Which is why I always like the balena as a kind of entry level to do that. We've recreated a ways of doing it, but it's really important.
You're talking about exactly the conversations we've been having about the Fin regarding the coprocessor. So the historical coprocessor was kind of left to the user to do what they wanted. We provided some out-of-the-box firmware to toggle pins and do some stuff. But the next Fin is going to be coprocessor first. So the predominant way that we expect users to interact with it is going to be through our firmware, with the intention that you can use it like a watchdog. It's going to basically be like the safety net for the hardware itself. So if you need to do things like power cycling, sleeping the device, it'll all be done through a firmware layer that we've maintained, that we make sure that has reliability and resilience.
Yeah, that's going to be a real nice trick to have.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately sort of kind of reminds me of the server model with out-of-band management, over the BMC. So you really, in a cloud server in a data center, you really can't destroy the device. You can always kind of come back to a known good, at least way to, repartition and bring the hardware back up. And I think that's missing in the IoT world at the moment, but it sounds like we're getting there. I do want to come all the way back up. We have a very critical question to ask that we missed along the way. Are those some DIY shelves?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you about my shelf story in a minute. Crafty, are your shelves DIY? Mine are IKEA.
No.
Okay. They're like proper shelves that you built from like a company, right?
That's like
low cost, but not open source.
All right.
Mine, I'm sitting at the back of my bedroom, right? And a year ago, I used to I work from an office at London Zoo. So we actually co-share an office over there with the team. So I used to get on the train, go into London, work there, a nice facility to work from. And then when the COVID pandemic struck, I was sitting at the back of my bedroom, just on a desk thinking, it's only going to be for like, I don't know, a month.
Yeah. It'll
crazy like that.
Weeks, no big deal.
Yeah. And then over the years, like, God, there's boxes of gear. Because you know what it's like when you work with electronics. You've got constant stuff from whatever, SparkFun, DigiKey just flying around. There's this pile of stuff like it's getting ridiculous. So then I actually bought a desk, which is like a U-shaped desk. You can't see it. Goes around a corner. Then I got my IKEA shelves, and I started with one. Now I've got two. And it's literally like, it's like an office. The bedroom is like pushed to the side. It's like, here's the office. But it's been the only way to operate in the world we've lived in for the last year. I mean, I'd love to get back into the environment where you can just have a coffee and chat and, have that space, but it's just not realistic right now. So
no, not yet.
Yeah. Sitting in our rooms, getting on with life, really.
Yeah.
It's so nice that we get into the houses of the people, actually. We don't realize that we are also not sharing knowledge or experiences or projects, but also part of our houses, right?
Yeah.
We had 24 hours notice to basically get what we needed out of our labs at the university when they announced lockdown. So my Friday evening after I was told by my supervisor that we had to get all the equipment for our lab was basically pile everything into a suitcase and do like 20 trips backwards and forwards between my home and the lab to get everything I needed. So I've got like servers. I've got all sorts of FPGAs, graphics cards that haven't been used for anything. We haven't needed them yet,
exactly.
but just in case.
Take it. Just
Just
take
under
it.
your desk. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The end of the wall arrived just in case, no?
Yeah.
I tell you what else though, which is was worrying me last week from the whole lockdown in terms of our world. We're at the storm of component supply has really started to hit. So because all those factories closed down last year, like mid-summer, there was a warning from U-Blocks, and we use U-Blocks. They sent a letter out saying their lead time went from 11 weeks to 26 weeks, which is 6.5 months, on all of their out-of-stock components. And it's not their problem. They just can't fix it because they're reliant on all of the subcontractors. So I had to go and like quickly just like get the credit card out and go and buy the last remaining stock of some Zoe modules that we use, thinking if I don't get these on my shelf, they're literally behind me now, I can't manufacture those boards, right? But that's hitting ST, U-Blocks, and so many others.
Yeah.
We're going to probably be pretty slow in this regard. I think there's going to be a lot of complexities just making what you want to make or board range. You've seen it too, right?
Yeah, we've been thinking about this with the Fin because we're starting to think of mitigation plans regarding some of the components we're sourcing because we're starting to hear stuff like, I mean, particularly ST. So we're looking at ST at the moment for our microcontrollers, and we're hearing all across the space that stock is just plummeting and the prices are going through the roof.
Yeah.
So we're just making sure that we have options to back up to swap to alternatives if we need to.
Yeah, it's same for us. It's a redesign or as small of a redesign as possible, but just getting that stock in. But it was one of those it's one of those you just don't realize how does the pandemic hit that too. You think maybe it would, but because it was such a slowdown of time, now we're picking up again and people are like, hey, let's move forwards. We're going to find it's going to be an interesting space for us.
Definitely.
It's the natural way of nature to slow us down and make us appreciate what we have, right?
Yeah, make you rebuild your boards.
Give those wells a break and slow down the manufacture of chips.
Yeah. Can I do a quick shout out for Arjit, who in the comments there said that when we did that bottle deployment, the river, the Ganges, passes through his city. So isn't that nice that we're here talking about a project we stuck a plastic bottle in the river and it probably went past his window at some point.
Yeah, super cool.
On its journey out. So thanks for that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. What recommendation? So we are getting into the 60 minutes. We can talk here for a long more, but what recommendation would you give to people that wants to conserve the planet as we live today?
Yep. So for me, I started off learning kind of entry-level kind of programming languages like Python. So something which is out there that is just, there's a lot of support to get into, especially in a Raspberry Pi place. My number one tip when people ask this is volunteer. So don't be afraid to email anyone, even if you're just a beginner. Maybe you're more into software than hardware. It doesn't matter what you're into. If you want to get in these projects, just volunteer your time. It can be for a week, can be for a month. But getting your foot in the door and being there at the right time is just imperative in this space. And once you're known and you're in that world and you just, people know that, oh yeah, we'll get, Joe or Sarah or whoever's, got involved. That's for the next level in. You're going to get a call by somebody saying, oh, you know what, let's just get Joe in or Sarah in again. So it's by far the best way. Don't just apply for jobs. I think that's the way in. Just volunteer, get some experience in that space. So that's my one.
Also look around you. I'm sure you will see a problem and then you just try to solve it technically. I mean, you think, how do I solve this by technology? I mean, there's plenty of technology. Just look around you, find a problem, and that's it.
Yeah. Experiment.
Go to the Arribada GitHub and look at issues to fix.
To follow up on that, I mean, Carlos says, great question, Mark, and that's true. That is a great question. And then following up on it is, you're doing a lot of open source work. And I mean, I have to imagine that these projects, I'm looking at the website, I'm looking at the blog, I'm sure you could use some extra hands, right? So if folks want to get involved, I mean, they don't have to be, full-time employees of Arribada, but they could still contribute and help, correct?
We have a guy right now, Tom. Shout out to Tom if he's watching. He's building
you're going to
mention, right? He's building an automatic sea turtle dunker. So it's basically a device with a tag on a hinge at the minute with a little kind of servo, which drops in the water. periodically, pulls it out, and does that on repeat so we can test GPS performance. He got in touch with us saying, what can I do to get involved? We said we need to automate this. We want to an array of them on our roof in little saltwater tanks. How long's been working with us now? Like 6 months? Something like that, Krasi? Just getting on with it. He's on our Slack. He joined us in. He's like a member of the team. And he's a volunteer at the moment, but awesome. We help him out. We chat to him about his ideas. He's leading the project, does all the CAD himself, but that's the kind of thing.
We even started like a community chat on Slack so everybody can join and we can discuss ideas, what we can do to help, how can people help us. So I think that's a good start as well, the Slack channel.
Let me find the link for it so I can drop it in.
We'll get him on a happy hour.
Any new challenging or exciting project that you can disclose here or that you are working on now, out of the ones that you share with us now?
On my side, it's the only one. Well, this one with the re-speaker, it's like the current one. So.
I'll share one which is going to be pretty cool, but it's just about to come out, so it'll be out soon. We're doing a project where we're using a new acoustic tag. It's called a micromoth from Open Acoustic Devices. It was shrunk down in size by Ruby Lee, who's a really good engineer who works for Arribada as a consultant on a load of different projects with us. But we're putting it in a domestic dog collar, recording the sounds of domestic dogs, so barking, panting, eating, all the sounds dogs make, training a model using domestic dog data, and we're going to put that model in a African wild dog tag in the wild, so we can actually detect, is that dog panting, for how long, energetics, how much food does it get, is it eating, crunching bones. But we're using domestic dogs with open source, low cost tech, and then transferring it to a wild project. So that's the new one coming out soon.
And we are looking for volunteers, if I remember right, people from the UK preferably, where we can place those on like domestic dogs, right?
Yeah, we've got a pre-list of people signing up, and it's going to come out soon as like
there you go. Answer to the question: how can people help?
Yeah, David, you cannot volunteer there.
If you've got a dog, you can. Even if you want to get into conservation tech, if you have a dog, you can get involved in conservation tech even before you get your first terminal access.
Well, that opens a discussion. If a machine learning has to say that, it says that sometimes it's a cat, it's dog, but that's another story.
Yeah,
my machine learning skills are not the greatest. Yeah, my object detection is not always the most accurate. We've had some pretty funny samples of that in the past.
Alex, I don't know if you had any question. Because you were the one who pushed me to contact Alasdair to do this IoT Happy Hour. I don't know if you wanted to ask anything before we end the episode.
I think Alice has probably brought us up to speed with all the cool stuff he's working on. The one that I was going to ask about was the one that I think we spoke about last time, which was the polar bear early warning system. What happened with that?
Oh yeah, I wanted to hear about that.
So this cam here, this cam here is the. I didn't want to bring more stuff into the table. So it's a Nature Bytes case with a poly IR. So it's designed for thermal. So it's not the same wavelength. It's just true IR. This is what it looks like inside. So it's actually a Pi 3A plus. And then we just use another bank of lithium, and this is a little kind of charger for it. But it's running on a lepton. So it's a FLIR lepton core, so 3.5 lepton. And we use this to log thermal imagery. This one was used on elephants. So this was used at ZSL Whipsnade because we work on early detection of elephants and early detection of polar bears. We did the same with this up in Scotland at the Highland Wildlife Park on polar bears, and we did it in Greenland in the wild in a town called the Tokatumit. And it's exactly the same as like the penguin cam. It's a logger that logs the actual footage of the animals in thermal. We've got 30,000 elephant photos. That's how many it took. And that's every single angle of an elephant's rear end, its side, its trunk, times of the day, different distances. You get all of them together, you label them, which takes time, and you put it through the same process, right? You see elephants walk onto the scene and it gets like 98% detection. They walk along, they do elephant style things, look like an elephant. And then they suddenly turn around and reach out for something from like a tree or some browse high above, and it looks like a kind of really big human because you've got 2 legs, a body, and then an arm, right? The trunk going up, and the model goes human, starts throwing human alerts. You're like, it's just an elephant in a weird angle. Then you have to teach it saying no, it's a weird elephant, and then you get better and better over time. Same with the polar bears. So the plan with the polar bears is keep getting footage up in Scotland, take that footage, put it back into the wild in Greenland, and do the same, get early warning detection. But the elephant project went forwards because we had more access and we could get on with it. But we will get there with the polar bears. It's going to happen. And again, temperatures, right? It's going to come down to that as an issue.
What does the loop look like regarding getting the training set data back to the devices? Because that must be interesting. Like, you can't obviously go out and change the models when they're deployed in the field. Yeah,
at the minute we'll do it over a cellular link at the moment because the models aren't big. It's all tiny ML, so you're only talking like 16 meg of a very big model. Again, we've been looking at Edge Impulse to shrink it down and see what we can do with the elephants. But because it's the camera itself is probably going to be maintained by people, and they're going to go and change batteries, like I'd say once every few months, max, like 2 months. We do have that ability. They bring it back in. We can push something to it again, right? Imagine you had some kind of balena setup where it gets a Wi-Fi connection, updates itself, and goes back out. That's the trick. So I think we'll either do it over cell, because there is cell in the locations we're working, or we'll do it over kind of bring home, recharge, that's your update period, and we'll push to all cams. And of course, push off. So the footage it's got goes back to the cloud, we retrain, we push it back down to the device, that kind of cycle.
Very cool.
Yeah, interesting.
So lots to get on with.
I'm going to ask the most stupid question of this hour. It's who goes to install it? You go?
Yeah.
Krasi goes. I want to Kenya, and he's really sad that he couldn't go to Kenya.
Yeah, funny question. When Krasi got involved, like the first week, I'm like, hey, we're going to get you in the field. It's going to be great. Thanks for joining us.
The first thing I wanted. I want to be in the field. I want to install the tech.
And he still hasn't got in the field. It
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I feel like a con man because I'm like, yeah, you'll get in the field. You're going to work with pangolins. It's going to be wait until you see the elephants. He's I'm so looking forward to it. And then all this kind of world slowed down, and it's like he still hasn't got in the field, but he will get in the field. It's going to happen.
The short answer is yes. We are going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the perk of doing it, right? You get to see the fruit of your labor. You get to go and do that.
This is why I said double full stack developer before we start.
Yeah.
So
you need to know a little bit about how to deploy IoT devices and how to, safely interact with penguins, polar bears, and elephants.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a nice perk to the job.
Well, that's not easy. I've been in Africa, and it's kind of, the wildlife it's not easy.
No.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll get out there when we're physically allowed.
Exactly.
All right.
Anything?
Anything else? Let's take a look over at chat. Some hellos. Hello, everyone. No, I don't see any other questions that have rolled in. So
we look good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, super interesting stuff.
Can mean two things. That you explained very well, and people understood everything. So no questions.
Well, super interesting stuff, and I definitely feel like have you guys back for some deeper dives on just some of these projects, like in particular. And I'm looking at the blog, and I know you didn't even cover half of them, so we may have to have a follow-up session here. But amazing stuff.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting us on. We've been using your stuff for a long time, and it's just nice to share some of our stories. So yeah, thank you very much.
Very cool. All right.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
David, would you like to wrap up the episode today?
Yeah. Well, let me get over here to this screen then. Yeah. So thanks, Al. Thanks, Krasi, for joining us. Definitely Anyone out there looking to get involved, like they mentioned, just simply drop them a line. It's all open source for the most part. There's hardware projects, there's software projects. If you're lucky, maybe they'll send you out in the field. I don't know. Sounds like Crossy hasn't made it out there yet.
To go first.
But I guess you'll be second in line behind Crossy.
Yeah, second in line. Yeah.
But good stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing some fins in Antarctica. So I'm going to be following up with you on that one. Alex, sounds like you might have some work to do to lower those temperature specifications, but we'll see what we can do there. And next week, I think, if I remember correctly, we're going to be playing some Minecraft. Is that right, Mark?
Exactly. We're going to play. We're going to install some Minecraft on your Pis and play some Minecraft here live on the IoT Happy Hour.
So that'll be a fun one. Be sure to check that out. All right, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for joining. I'm hitting the end button, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.